What's up, Bulldogs? All right, I want to talk to you today about my skydiving experience, at least some of it, because there's a lot to be learned from this. And I think it's just super interesting what transpired and how this was different than a lot of the other experiences I've had in my life in terms of fear and overcoming fear. Right. So I talked about this a little bit earlier, and I've been talking about how I'm really shifting, not really shifting, I suppose, but embracing the focus of this channel as transformation. That's what I am teaching. That's what I'm talking about on this channel. That's what I'm doing is transforming and teaching you how to transform. So in the context of transformation, I want to talk about the skydiving experience and some transformations that occurred, which allowed, first of all, this experience to occur, and then for me to handle it the way that I did. So I have some videos. You can check out the video. You can watch me skydiving on this channel. I have the full video, and I've given somewhat of an explanation of what was going on, what led up to that. So I'm not going to repeat that part of the story, but I want to talk about the experience itself, right? So when I went skydiving, right, I had signed up the night before, and when I had committed to doing this thing, I really didn't have very much fear associated with it, right? I'm not saying that there wasn't any. I'm not saying that I wasn't anxious at all, especially the night before, but there wasn't very much at all. It wasn't a dread. It wasn't the usual experience of fear that I might have experienced in the past, especially that I had experienced in the past with considering skydiving before, with other events. Even just when I had a fear of flying on airplanes, I experienced quite a bit of anxiety and dread and fear before getting on an airplane, while being on an airplane, even just thinking about going to the airport. Whereas I had really none of this with this experience. And so even when I got to the place to do the skydiving, and even when I was waiting around, there was really no fear. There was really no anxiety, maybe a very small amount of anxiety. And even when I got on the plane, and even when I jumped out of the plane, there was really none of that. So why was that? What was going on? Well, there's a few things. One of them I talked about a little bit already, which is this idea of commitment. I was fully committed to this. I do believe that when you fully commit to something, you accept your fate. And so it actually functions to eliminate fear, because fear in some way is an anticipation. It's an anxiety. It is a wondering what if. But if you already know what if or what's going to happen, then there's less fear, right? But that's not really what I want to focus on today. I know it's taken me a long time to get to the point here, but the experience, part of the reason why that experience unfolded the way that it did was because in my mind, what I was viewing, and this is very hard to explain, was it wasn't me that was skydiving, right? It was me, but it wasn't me, in the sense that I had detached myself from myself. What do I mean by this? What I mean was that I let go of the self-identification of the ego at that time and just allowed whatever was going to be. So you could say this is a non-attachment. I've talked about this a lot. We haven't talked about this concept recently, but non-attachment, which is really not trying to control the outcome of situations, right? So I was just letting it be. So I committed to this thing. I was going to do this skydiving. And so at that point, instead of becoming the will, instead of becoming the doer, I became the observer. I became the watcher. I simply just was there for the ride. If that makes sense, you understand what I'm saying? I wasn't trying to skydive. I wasn't trying to overcome my fear. I wasn't trying to do anything. All I was doing was simply riding the ride. And it's an interesting thing, just, as I thought about this, because I've been sort of dissecting this, and why was this experience so different? Why was it so easy? And it really just opened up, I would say, a pathway to enlightenment, a portal where I could see that the reason for this had to do with letting go, with letting go of the ego, with just being an observer. And it made me realize that it almost seems impossible, because it's a non-dualistic type of thinking, right? Which is that you can live your life in such a way where you're not living your life. You are just going along for the ride. And I don't mean this in a bad way, because you can be going along for a ride in a bad way, meaning that you're abdicating, you're not making decisions, you're not trying to improve or change your situation. You're just taking whatever life gives you. There's a good way of doing this. This is something that Michael Singer talked about in his book. What is it? The Presence Process? Or I'll have to look it up because he wrote Untethered Soul. But essentially the idea is that you are just letting go of the will to control outcomes, to try and make things happen, right? You're still doing things, but it's more of that you're just like assigning yourself to the thing, assigning the sim, right? So it's very hard to understand or to explain this concept. I'm trying to explain this because it's super powerful, right? If you understand this and how it can transform your life, because most of our life, we're trying to do things. We're trying to make things happen. We're trying to control outcomes, right? And when you let go and you stop trying to control the outcome, you still do, but you're just along for the ride. You're going to let whatever happens happen. And there was this acceptance on my part of even the risk of skydiving. Maybe I die. Maybe something happens to me. But that is just, I'm not fighting that. Does that make sense? Do you get what I'm saying here? I know it's pretty convoluted and it's difficult because it's difficult to explain in words things that transcend words. And this concept, it transcends words, right? Because this concept is this concept of not associating with the self. It is letting go of the self and just being the observer. Because and maybe this will help, is that you've probably heard of mindfulness, you've probably heard of presence, right? And you've probably heard of the concept of observation, being the observer, right? So observing emotions, observing things, not identifying with things. Maybe in meditation, just observing the thoughts and seeing that in heavy meditation practice, what you can come to the realization of is that you are not your thoughts. You're not your mind. You're not your body. There is a thought, a thinker, but that's not you. That is an automatic system that exists, that is your body and your brain and your mind, but you're not that. And the way that you know that is because you can observe it, right? Again, a great book on this is Untethered Soul by Michael Singer, and you can understand that, or Eckhart Tolle, The Power of Now. You can read those books, but you're probably familiar, at least somewhat, of that concept, right? That you know that you are not your mind, you're not your thoughts, because you can observe them. And so when you carry this out to beyond meditation, to life, that's where real transformation occurs, because it makes life impersonal, right? There's actually a really good book by Joseph Brenner called the Impersonal God. I believe that's what it's called. This was a life-changing book when I read this book, because it just flipped religion on its head for me. You know, I was very much Christian. I taught Bible studies, and then I read this book and I let go of that. Again, now I'm not trying to got to be careful here, because I don't want to turn you off by whatever you believe. That's fine at this point in time. I'm not going to try and convince you otherwise. You will see or you won't see on your own. But what I'm getting at here, and this is the critical thing to understand, is that when you depersonalize life, maybe that's the best way to say that, and you give up the driver's seat and you become a passenger, life becomes a lot easier. It unburdens you from all these things, right? I've talked about these things at lower levels of consciousness, right? I've talked about letting go of expectations. I've talked about acceptance, non-attachment. These are the same concepts. Those are just lower levels of this. I've talked about, and this is where everything unifies together, is I've talked about responding in love to all things, to all people, to all situations. I've talked about grace, having grace. It's a higher level. But this transcends all of those things, because when you live an impersonal life, which I know that sounds weird, but when you let go of being in the driver's seat and you become the passenger in your life, right? Again, it doesn't mean that you're not making decisions. It just means that it's like the Stoic archer. You're letting go of the outcome. And when I say let go of the outcome, I don't mean just trying to force the outcome. I mean letting go of believing that you can create outcomes, of seeing outcomes just unfolding. You're letting go of the idea of cause and effect. It's a lot of letting go. But when you become that passenger in that car, that observer, all of these other things become true as well. In this sense, think of it this way. Things become impersonal to the sense that, let's say that someone attacks you verbally. It's not you they're attacking. You're just observing. You're just a passenger. So your ego is not triggered anymore. Because why would it be triggered? It doesn't matter. It's not you. You're not the one. You're not the driver. So they're not really attacking you. The you that exists outside of this body, this mind, whatever it is that they're projecting, that they're attacking. Not only that, but you can identify that they're not even them. I know this is getting a little bit far out there, but I want you to really try to understand this concept. You could spend a lifetime trying to understand this concept. All of these things, these worries, these fears, they exist within the you that is attempting to drive. When you are the passenger and you're not attempting to drive, and you're just there for the ride, those things don't matter. They don't affect you. Do you see how that detachment benefits you? Again, that's why I was able to jump out of the plane with almost no trepidation at all. I'm not saying that there wasn't any. There is still some identification to the self, obviously, but there's less. And in those moments, there was a lot less because I let go. I let go of trying to be in the driver's seat in that case. I was here for the ride to see what was going to happen. I did what I needed to do. Go get in the plane. Okay. Go sit, listen to the instruction, do the thing. Sure. Jump out of the plane. Okay. I did the things, but I let go of the illusion that I was in control, that I was making the things happen. The body was doing the things. It was responding to the instructions, not the real I. The real I was just sitting there having a good time, observing, watching what was going to happen, experiencing the experience. Do you see now? You are experiencing the experience. And why is this so foundational to your transformation? Because it solves a lot of things. It's a shortcut to the emotional development and discipline that you can achieve through hard physical labor, through developing your mental toughness. I'm not saying those things aren't valuable, through working on your resilience and emotional mastery. But if you can come to this concept, you're going to get there faster. You're going to transform faster. You won't have to deal with your anger issues. You don't have to let go of expectations because there are no expectations. You don't have to forgive because there's nothing to forgive. There's no harm that's ever done. Do you get where I'm going with this? And again, maybe it's not for you just yet. Save this video, come back to it in a few years. You'll see. But yeah, it was a profound experience, and it just shifted slightly my consciousness in that direction to understand that, wow, this is a powerful thing to apply. It's not just something to apply, it's something to realize the truth of. As I'm sitting here making this video, am I making this video? I could identify with it and the outcome of the video. If I do that, then I'll be attached to it. I can allow the video to come forth. I can let go of the idea that I'm creating this video. Instead, there is the John, the Bulldog mindset John. He is here on camera, but where am I? I can see myself. I can see what I view as myself. I can see this person, but it's not me. It never was me. Do you see? So there you have it. That is how to skydive. I was gonna talk about the Bulldog mindset membership but sure, if you want to join us, click the link down below. If you don't, that's cool as well. But either way, I'll see you tomorrow.